The alarm says 4:45 a.m. You reach for it. Before it finishes the first ring, the way you've reached for it for 18 years, and for a second, half asleep, your hand hovers over the button like it's waiting for permission to stop. You don't need to be up. That's the thing nobody would believe if you said it out loud. You don't need to be anywhere in the next 3 hours. But your body doesn't know that yet. Your body has been waking up at 4:45 since you were 24 years old. And 18 years of a body doing something isn't undone by a number in an account. You sit on the edge of the bed the way you always have, elbows on your knees, looking at the window where the city is still, mostly dark except for the few offices that never turn their lights off. You are 42 years old. You are a roofer. You have been a roofer since you were 20. And for the first 18 of those years, you lived paycheck to paycheck the way most people in your trade do. Not because you were careless, but because roofing doesn't pay you when it rains, doesn't pay you in the dead of winter, doesn't pay you when your knees finally start to go the way every roofer's knees eventually go. You made $34,000 your first full year. You make $71,000 now. Neither number explains why you're awake right now. Here's what explains it. 18 years ago, on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday, you put $40 into an investment account you'd opened almost by accident after a coworker named Reyes mentioned his in passing during a lunch break on a roof in July, sweat soaking through both their shirts, talking about index funds like it was nothing, like it wasn't the first time you'd ever heard the phrase. You didn't understand what an index fund was. You understood $40 wasn't going to change your life, and you were right. It didn't, not that month, not that year. But you kept doing it. Every payday, before rent, before groceries, before anything else touched your account. $40 left it and went somewhere you couldn't see or feel or spend. You didn't tell anyone. Not your wife at first, not your brother, not the guys on the crew. It felt too small to mention and somehow also too important to risk anyone talking you out of it. The first 2 years were nothing. You checked the account twice, maybe 3 times total, and both times the number was small enough to be almost insulting. A few $100s sitting in a place that felt more like a drawer than an investment. You kept sending 40, then 60 when you picked up a second crew's worth of overtime one summer. Then 75 after a raise that felt enormous at the time and looks, from here, like nothing at all. You skipped things. Not everything. You weren't a monk about it. But you skipped the truck you wanted at 26, kept driving the one with 140,000 miles instead. You skipped 3 vacations your friends took, the kind with flights and hotels, and told people you were saving for a house. Which was true, but not the whole truth, because you were also just quietly not spending on purpose, in a way that had started to feel less like sacrifice and more like a second job you never clocked into. You bought the house at 31. Small, 3 bedrooms, a yard that needed work, a mortgage that felt like a weight settling onto your chest the first 6 months and then slowly, like something you could carry without thinking about it. The $75 a month didn't stop. It became $100 after the house, then dropped back to $60. For 2 years when your daughter was born and money got tight in the particular way it gets tight when a family goes from 2 incomes, worth of attention to 3 people's worth of need, you didn't feel guilty about dropping it. You felt guilty about the years before. Honestly, the years when you wondered if the whole thing was pointless. A kid's game dressed up as adult responsibility. $40 a month evaporating into a system you didn't understand, run by people who definitely understood it better than you and were probably, in some way you couldn't name, taking advantage of that gap. You almost stopped in year 7. This is the part you don't usually say out loud, because it doesn't fit the story people want to hear. The clean version where discipline just works because you decided it would. The market dropped that year, not catastrophically, but enough that the account, which had taken 7 years to reach 9,400, fell to 6,800 in about 5 weeks. You sat at the kitchen table on a Sunday night with a calculator, and the account open on your phone and did the math on what pulling it all out would mean. It would mean a truck with under 60,000 miles. It would mean paying off the credit card balance you'd been carrying since your daughter's first year, the one at 22%, the one that kept you up more than any market drop ever had. Pulling out $6,800 felt that Sunday night like the only rational decision available to a rational person. You didn't do it. You've never been fully able to explain why, even to yourself. Something about the $40 from year 1, the accidental start of it, felt like it belonged to a version of you that deserved to see this through. Even if the version of you sitting at that kitchen table, the account passed $20,000 in year 9. You remember exactly where you were on a roof in October, cold enough that your hands were stiff inside your gloves, Checking your phone during a water break because Reyes, still on your crew all these years later, had just told you his own account crossed 6 figures and you wanted, mostly out of something between curiosity and competitiveness, to see where yours stood. 2,300. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like proof of something you'd half suspected but never fully believed. That the money you couldn't see was actually there. Actually real. Actually doing something while you were doing something else entirely. 40 feet up, laying shingles in the cold. You kept working overtime through your 30s the way roofers do. Not because you loved it. Nobody loves standing on a pitched roof in August heat. But because overtime pay was the fastest lever you had. Faster than a raise. Faster than a promotion that wasn't coming in a trade that doesn't really have promotions the way office jobs do. Every overtime check got split the same way it had been split for years by then. Automatic, unglamorous, most of it to bills. A fixed piece to the account, no matter what else was happening. Your knees started complaining around 36. Your back joined them at 38. You started icing both most nights, sitting on the couch with your daughter doing homework across from you. The account open on your laptop more often now, not out of anxiety but out of something closer to habit, the way some people check the weather. The account crossed $90,000 the year you turned 39. Your daughter was 11. Your wife, who'd known about the investing for over a decade by then, mostly forgotten it existed day to day. The same way you forget a pilot light is burning somewhere in the house. Present, doing its job, invisible until you need it. You didn't feel rich. You want to be clear about that, because it's the part people skip when they tell stories like this one. $90,000 in a retirement account when you're 39, with a mortgage and a kid and a job that's slowly wrecking your knees, doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like a number that exists in a different room from the one you're standing in. Real but not touchable. Useful someday but not tonight. Not for tonight's version of tired. Somewhere around 40. The math started doing something you hadn't planned for. Not planned exactly, hoped for, maybe. In the vague way you hope for things you don't really expect. The account, by then holding contributions, plus over a decade of market growth compounding quietly on top of itself, started producing returns in good years that were larger, by themselves, than a full year of your $40 contributions had ever been. You didn't notice the shift happening. Nobody notices compounding while it's happening. That's the entire nature of it. It works in a register too slow for daily attention. You notice the result instead. On a Tuesday morning very much like this one. Checking the account before work out of habit, and doing quiet math in your head that you then did again on your phone's calculator because you didn't trust the first answer. The account had grown by $41,000 that year. Your job, all in, overtime included, had paid you $71,000. The gap between those two numbers, a gap that had been enormous and entirely one-directional for 18 years, had quietly, without ceremony, without you doing anything different that particular year, become something you could actually see closing. That was 4 months ago. This morning, the morning the alarm went off at 4:45, for no reason you can defend to anyone, including yourself. You checked the account before your feet even hit the floor, and the 12-month return sat at $74,200. Your salary this year, overtime included, comes to $71,000. For the first time in 18 years, the money that isn't you, the money that doesn't wake up at 4:45, doesn't climb a ladder, doesn't ice its knees at night, made more than the version of you that does all of that. You sit on the edge of the bed with that fact for a long moment. There's no music swelling in the room. Your wife is still asleep. The coffee maker hasn't started yet. Nothing about the physical morning is different from the 10,000 mornings before it. You still have a full day of roofing ahead of you. A job on Maple Street that needs finishing before the weather turns. And you'll still climb the ladder in about 90 minutes, the exact same way you always have, because the calluses on your hands don't know about compound interest and the mortgage doesn't care what your portfolio did last year. But something in the room has changed anyway. The way a house feels, different the day you finish paying it off even though it looks exactly the same from the street. You think about the $40 from that first Tuesday, the one you almost don't remember sending because it was so small it barely registered as a decision at the time. You think about the Sunday at the kitchen table in year 7, the calculator, the credit card at 22%, the almost don't remember sending because it was so small it barely registered as a decision at the time. You think about the Sunday at the kitchen table in year 7, the calculator, the credit card at 22%, the almost. You think about Reyes on that roof in July, sweating through his shirt, talking about index funds like they were nothing, handing you, without either of you knowing it, the one conversation that would eventually out-earn both your jobs combined. You get up. You make coffee the way you always do, too strong. In a mug with a chip on the handle you've meant to replace for 6 years. Your daughter's door is still closed. Your wife stirs but doesn't wake. Outside, the sky is starting to go from black to the deep blue that comes right before actual light. And somewhere in an account you can't see or touch or hold in your hands, money that used to be $40 a month is quietly, invisibly, doing more work than you did yesterday, and will likely do more work again today, while you're 40 feet up a ladder on Maple Street, not thinking about it at all, because you don't have to anymore. That's the part nobody tells you about the years of small, boring, uncelebrated contributions. They don't feel like anything while you're making them. They only start feeling like something on a random Tuesday. 18 years later, when you wake up at 4:45 for no reason, and realize the reason stopped being necessary a long time before you noticed.